Hi, so this is my research presentation on challenges and contributions of women as Civil War nurses. So, despite social limitations and restrictions for the women during this era, women were really significant on the battlefield for how many lives they saved. And then they were also known as the battlefield angels because they just had such an impact on how many people actually lived during this war with like very bad injuries, and they just went and overcame a lot of obstacles that were in their way. Women just really paved the way for women's rights very early on, and they had such an impact on how women were viewed after the war was over and how much respect they gained. So, yeah. So, one of the main reasons why women entered this war was because both armies really failed to prepare themselves for the amount of injuries that would occur. And women were seeing their husbands, their brothers, sons just dying right and left. And they really wanted to not just sit at home and watch this happen, they wanted to, help prevent it. And then also, carrying off of that, many soldiers who were in the war were just given the title as nurse when, they really weren't, then they didn't have like the medical skills to be doing anything that a nurse would be doing. So it was like setting themselves up for failure very early on. So, the everyday life of a Civil War nurse was actually very gruesome. They saw a lot of blood, guts, and just a bunch of gory stuff that they really weren't used to because most women before this time were just, pretty primarily just at the house cooking, taking care of the kids. So this was very new, and there were many stories that explained how women were passing out, how they were throwing up, and yeah, it's just crazy. And then they also were, really in the battle. I mean, many of the women got injured during battles, um, which is terrible, and because they're trying to help people. So, for instance, Confederate nurse Julia Ann Opie Hopkins was shot in the hip and was crippled for the rest of her life. And we don't really think about that compared to the amount of injuries that we saw from the soldiers. And it is crazy what they went through on a daily basis. So, one question someone might have would be, did women ever regret their decision to join the war? Yes, many women actually did because they were just treated so poorly in the workplace, and, they regret going in because they were working so hard, but, that kind of at the bottom of the food chain. And then another question might be, did women gain more respect after the war was over? Yes, they did, although it wasn't like there was, like enough respect, I guess. Like they did gain some because they, obviously they didn't have all their rights yet. And then lastly, who took care of the children while the women were at the Civil War? And that would be older siblings in the house, and stuff like that. So yeah, it was really kind of a change for women on the day-to-day basis and stuff. So overall, women really did overcome a lot of challenges, um, and you know, they just drastically changed the war, and the they just, I mean, the Civil War wasn't just an end to slavery, but it took steps towards women's rights. And it's kind of sad that women lacked the opportunity to be able to show like how well they can work in environments like this and how well they can handle work. um, but the Civil War really did open the eyes of many people, and people started to believe that that these housewives were capable of more, which is really great. And so, yes, Civil War nurses really did overcome a lot of hurdles and really change the face of medicine at that time too. So lastly, the this is my works cited page. Not very fun material, just where I got all of my information from. So thank you, and I hope you learned a little bit more about nurses in the Civil War and how they really helped improve women's rights.